Hello everyone and welcome back to this Next.js and Contentful tutorial series. In the previous video we created this beautiful layout where we have this sidebar to be able to filter our jobs based on different filter criteria, and also this search bar where we can let the user type a particular query and get the jobs that are relevant for that query, and finally this sort filter here where the user can sort the displayed results based on different sorting criteria as well. But obviously at the moment this is just the UI part. It's not going to be functional. So the goal of this video is to make these components functional, and this video and the subsequent ones is to make these components and filters functional. And in this video our attention is going to be focused on these two to display how to demo how to do equality queries in Contentful. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So one way to do that could be to simply send here every time we make that query, to simply send an API function here to get the data and simply update, use the set display jobs that we are getting here to display the jobs that are received based on that. So what I mean is we can make a query here, okay, and await query, okay, and get the jobs that are returned. And once we get those jobs in that callback, we can call the set display jobs and set the jobs there. But let's see, when we analyze that carefully, we see that will require us to use our client in the front end, which is definitely not something that we want to do, right? We definitely don't want to do that, okay? So what we want to do instead, and why we don't want to do that, well, is because our client, we don't want to expose our credentials data on the front end. Obviously that's not secure at all right? And obviously the second reason is that that will make our queries separate from one another, right? So like imagine if we make the query here to change the let's say the checkbox, the radio changes here, okay, and we make a query that's only specific to this. Well, that's not exactly the best user experience, right? So you want every time something changes to make a query that encompasses every other form states, right? So if I change it to false, and at the same time there's a search term here, I want to be able to send both of these filter criteria at the same time to the search Contentful function, right? Instead of sending each query individually on its own, okay? So that's not what we want. We want to send one search query with all the filtering criteria inside of that query. So that's the second reason why doing the search here is not a good idea, okay? Now the first reason is for security reasons. We don't want to expose our client, and for the second reason is for a purely functional and reason, right? Because of the functionality we're trying to implement. So how then are we going to do that? Well, Next.js gives us API routes. These are special type of routes that allows us to do some API type of stuff. So for example, if I duplicate this page and I visit the api.hello route, api.hello, you see that we get a beautiful, where is that? Is it running? Is my server running? Yeah, it is. And why is not, oh yeah, 300, not 3,000 here. Very good, right? So we have John Doe here, okay? So what we want to do is to create a route that will be similar to this, that we're going to call search jobs, okay? Search jobs, very good. And call it like this. I'm going to copy the content that we have here, exactly the same, okay? And just for the sake of demo, let me import get jobs, okay? Which route do we have here? in our data layer, what are the routes that are available to us? Get jobs is one of them. Okay, so get import get jobs. Very good, very good. No, not this one. Get jobs. Very good. So one thing I want to do just for demo very quickly equals to await get jobs. I want to get all the jobs and display them, so you see that we can call this. So I'm going to remove this, obviously, like this, remove this and display this instead. Close this one. Let's visit that route. So if I visit hello, it's still the same, but if I visit search jobs, see, very good. You see, it's displaying all the jobs that we have in the database, all of them. Okay, so the goal now, instead of calling the get jobs function that is displaying every job, well, we need to create a new function that is going to be responsible for displaying only the jobs that are relevant for the query that we pass in. Okay, so in the query we have the body of the query, which is, anyway, I'm going to do that later. So first, let's go into this function, this file, and let's add a new function here called search jobs, and let's implement that. Okay, so const equal to search jobs. Actually, I have already the code. I'm a very slow typer, so I'm just going to copy the code and paste it there, and we're going to walk through it very fast. So I have it here, search jobs. Very good. So basically we get the query, okay, and just like all the other queries, we need to make sure that we're filtering by jobs only, and include is to make sure that we are fetching nested references, right? And now one thing that's important to do, if the jobs, because we want to add this filter only if the user wants remote jobs and only those jobs, right? So if the user is filtering and only wants jobs that are remote jobs, okay, then we add this filter. If the user wants jobs that are feature jobs only, then we add this filter. Otherwise we ignore those filters and we just make the query, okay, to Contentful like this, and we get the found jobs. Obviously we pass them using our reduce and we return them. Okay, so that's what we want to do. So if I refresh here, obviously it's not going to do anything because at the moment this query is not passed in as a parameter. So let's send a dummy, and also we are not even using the search job functions here. So let's make it let's return it from the index here. Remember why we have to do this like this. Actually, let me demonstrate again why we need to do it that way. Well, we don't want Contentful to appear here, right? We want everything that is in all our page routes, all our Next.js and pure React component to never be aware that we are using Contentful under the cover. So for that reason, let's add it to the index, okay, and export it like this, and just import it from the data layer in an agnostic manner, okay? And we're going to use search jobs here instead of get jobs, search jobs. And for now, let's pass in some dummy parameters. Okay, we're going to fix that later by getting actual parameters from the query that's going to be sent from our React component. So here, let's say remote true, and let's put this one as well to true. Okay, so initially, see how many jobs you had here, a long list of jobs, right? So if I refresh here now, you see we have a much shorter list of jobs, right? It means that our query definitely works. And to prove the point even better, let's make sure that if I say, for example, instead of returning the jobs themselves, let's return the length. And let's test here, you see, only returning one single job. If I put here to false, okay, and false, how many jobs do we get? Well, we are getting all the 5 jobs in the database, right? So we see that our API endpoint is already working. It's working fantastically well. Okay, so we have all our queries, the equality queries that we want to deal with in this video, working fine. As far as the data layer is concerned, the API is hooked to that. albeit not exactly well, because this request parameter needs to be consumed. But in order to consume it, we need to pass in the right parameters to this request as well. So let's do that. Let's see how to do that. Well, where do our states live? They live in this UI parameter that we have created earlier here, which is this jobs page. Okay, that's where our UI live. I can already close this guy. We are not going to use this anymore, change that anymore. So I'm going to close that, close this, and just leave this to one opens. Okay, so the first thing, well, one way to do a query in Contentful, in a React component, is to call the fetch API, right? We can call the fetch API, and in order to do that, because this is it's an impure function, we need to do it from the use effect hook, right? You remember your React, right? So in order to use use effect, what we do is simply well, we are going to, let's call use effect like this, takes as input a callback. Okay, and that callback, let's say console log, sidebar state form changed, implying we're gonna trigger a search. Okay, and that hook, we want it to depend on the sidebar. Okay, sidebar form state. We want to console log this, and when the state in our search form changes, we want to change this from search. Okay, all right, and in order to make sure that this works perfectly, I'm going to remove some of the alert that we had earlier in those functions. So this is just all right, this is good. We just have some, I think in this one we have an alert, so I'm going to remove that. Okay, let me remove this one just so we can see actual changes here. Let me, all right, search, one sec. I think I'm doing that in the wrong position. Search, oh yeah, very good. Let's bring that down like this. Bring that down here. Okay, very, very good. So let's look at our console log. What's going on? Okay. Very, very good. So if I refresh here, you see sidebar change, sidebar state changed, sidebar state from form, it should be form changed, triggering a search. Well, actually, this should not be displayed yet because this is just the first render, so we should not be displaying this data, or we should not be displaying this already. Okay, so why is it that we are already, even though we are not we haven't changed anything yet, why is it that the form like the use effect is already rendered? Why? Do you remember your use effect, right? So use effect triggers every time the component renders, and every time the dependency changes. So let's see if it's going to render if the dependency changes. Well, it does. Okay, and here also it does, right? It does here. But this initial render is not good for us because initially, obviously, we don't want to trigger the search, right? Upon render, we want everything that is default to be the same. So for example, if I refresh here again, we don't want this to trigger the search initially upon the first render. So how can we prevent that? Well, there's a beautiful use of the use effect, the use ref hook. If you look at this FAQ page, you can see how use ref can be used as sort of if I come here, no, the FAQ, although the main use of one of the most known, the well-known use of useRef is to use it to connect it to an import to a DOM element. One lesser known use of the useRef hook is to use it as what could be called as an instant variables. Remember when you have your classes, a class could have like an instance attribute to count the number of attributes that has been created for that particular class, right? So it's the same idea here, and we're going to make sure that we keep track of like if our component has already been rendered or not, okay, using an instant class, right? So every time the state changes and we are re-rendering the component, we will be able to know from that use ref attribute whether or not to do the if it's a first render or if it's a subsequent render of the hook. Okay, so let's of the component. So let's use ref. Difficult to pronounce all those names. All right, so we have use ref that we have imported here. What we want to do obviously is to create a variable for each of these use effects. So I'm going to create const initial render 1. Okay, it's going to be use ref true. Okay, and I'm going to do very simply here, I'm going to wrap this guy in this here initial render 1 current. Okay, if it's the first render, we put it to false. Okay, we put it to false, initial render 1 current false equals to false. Otherwise we make our okay, you can at the moment we are just console log, but you can see this console log as the equivalent of the query that we're trying to make. Okay, so let's see if this solves the problem. And then okay, so I refresh here, let's see if it solves the problem. State change sidebar. Okay, let's see. All right, initial render 1. Oh no, else. I should put else here. I was missing the else. That's why. You see, now only the we don't have that console log for the sidebar anymore. Only for the search, right? So the search, you see, because we don't have that initial render check, the use effect hook for the search is always triggered upon the first render, which we don't want, right? Now for the sidebar, it's going to be triggered, but only for subsequent ones, right? Only for subsequent ones, not for the first one. We want to do the same obviously for the search bar, so let's add that as well here, and we're going to add a separate one, const initial render 2 equals to use ref. This initially is true, and once we complete the whole thing, we want to put it back to false. Okay, so let me copy all this content here, add it here, and put 2 here and 2 here, and then the console log I'm just going to replace with the value, the proper value here, like this. Very good. Okay, so let's refresh this again. You see, this time it's never displayed, right? So it's only if you change that it's gonna change. It's gonna display that, and the same thing here. You see, exactly. That's exactly the behavior that we want, right? So that's now very good. Obviously, what we want is not do the console log. We actually want to search. We want to perform a search. Okay. So in this video, our attention is going to be focused on the sidebar form. In a subsequent video, we're going to put focus on the search form state, but for this video we're going to handle the sidebar, and particularly these two guys here, the remote OK and feature jobs only, because these are simple. Okay, so what do we want to do? Well, as soon as this is changed, we want to send a request to the database, to the data layer. Okay, so let's create a function here that's gonna search the data, that's gonna trigger the query. So let's call that search jobs. Okay, let's call that search jobs, and what that function is gonna do is simply an async function. Okay, that takes as input the API URL that we need to communicate with, takes all the states, remember, that we need a function. We need a function that deals with all the states at once, right? And in that function, we get the response. Okay, oops, response equals to await. Oops. Okay, fetch. Oh no, fetch. Okay, API URL. Very good. And then the method is a post, and then the headers. I have it here. Let me copy it quickly, and then the body as well. Very good. So we stringify the form states. These are all the forms that are currently used. Okay, and what we do, found jobs equals to await response.json. And once we have that, what do we do? Well, when we have the jobs, we have a beautiful set jobs here that we can simply call to change those the list of jobs currently available, right? So I'm going to call that function immediately here, set display jobs, found jobs. Very good. Okay, so this already should work, right? So now we just simply need to use it. Okay, so I'm going to use it here. Remember, we are not dealing with this one in this video. We're dealing with this guy, so I'm going to call it here. Very, very simple. What we do is simply const form states like this. And what are our states? Sidebar form state and search form states, and we call that function search jobs like this, and we pass in form states. Oops, form states. Okay, and it should work. It should work only if and only if we deal with that here as well. Okay, so obviously here, instead of sending our dummy query that we're sending here for now, we want to send, we want to return what is being passed down to the query, and we can get that from the request.body. So we can have like form states like this equals to rec.body. But actually what I want to do is to destructure that. I want to destructure this, so I'm going to copy this here like this. It's here. Very good. I'm going to destructure it like this, and this is a string, this is a form, it's an object. Okay, so, and I want to pass that down, so I'm going to concatenate the two in like this. So I'm going to destructure this guy like this. All right, and here obviously we're not using this in this video, but in subsequent video we're going to use it. So I'm going to put like search text. Okay, search bar form. Very good. All right, so if we refresh again, just to have a clean state, and then I trigger here, what's going on? Nothing working. Something is not working. What is that? Let's see. If I click here, what's happening? Okay, we're changing the state. Okay, there's something wrong. There's something. Oh yeah, I see. We are not calling it properly. Let's see. For my API here, search jobs. Obviously, yeah, we need to pass in the API endpoint. API search jobs. Very good. And now it should work like a charm. Search jobs. Very, very good. You see, now we have it here like this. It's not sending the request, obviously. And then if we click here, what is going on? What is going on? Oh, I see. It's because here, when we were playing earlier, we returned the length instead of the actual jobs. We should return the jobs, not the length. Okay, where's that there? Okay, close that. Here. All right, this is our friend. So let's refresh again. All right, very good. You see, now it works. Okay, so if I remove this, I click here, I click on the remote. Okay, it's fine, it's working very well, very, very well. But we have an issue still. Okay, the jobs page, the form is initiated in such a way that it's going to be true here, but obviously we don't want the form to be initialized with true. So I'm going to put this to false. And also just to make sure that this, just to make sure that it's coherent with the other naming, I'm going to call this remote OK only. Okay, so I'm going to call this remote OK only. And I'm going to make sure I replace everywhere with the same. Okay, okay, okay. Where else do we need that? I think in all the functions that depend on that. So namely search jobs, not this one. This one actually, yeah, this one like this. Depend on that. Okay, only. I think it's semantically clearer what our intent is. Okay, let's make sure that it works again. Oops, I think I'm missing somewhere to make the change also. Let's search, do it global search, remote, okay. Make sure we're getting only that. Very good. Jobs card, job sidebar form, like this. All right, I think here it is. Here it is. Okay, so it should be only here, only here. It should work now, I think. Not still. Okay, we still have an issue somewhere. I think here, let's change that here also. Only, and the final one somewhere here, only. Now it should definitely work. Oh no, still not. Something going on. One sec. Component. Okay. Job card. Let me look at my note very quickly. It's even breaking the code. Because here it's working. Featured. On code promise. Let me refresh this. See if I'm missing something. Yeah. Search jobs internal. Okay, I see where the issue could be. This one here. What? Oh yeah, here. I mean, in the database, at the database level, it's called remote OK. Okay, same thing as there. All right, so now it should definitely be fine. It should definitely be fine. Very good. Right. So now we have it. We have remote OK. That works. So if I have, for example, if I look at these jobs here, we have this job particularly, and this one that are not remote OK. So if I filter, they're going to be gone. Right now we have only the jobs that accept that are marked as remote OK. And if I filter this even further, you're going to have only the job that is a featured job. If I remove this, obviously there's only one featured job in the database, in the CMS. So that's it. So here you have it. We have now implemented an equality filter in Contentful. So that was the main goal of this video. You see we have here fields of remote OK, fields of feature job. If the value is true, then we're gonna return jobs that are only we're gonna return jobs only that match the specific criteria. I hope you find this video useful, and I see you in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye.